Introduction to Paul Cardan, Modern Capitalism and Revolution by Maurice Brinton. Paul Cardan being a pseudonym of Cornelius Castoriadis. This small book is an attempt to describe the main features and to analyze the dynamic of modern fully industrialized capitalist societies from a revolutionary socialist point of view. It attempts from the world of 1965 what Marx attempted 100 years ago in relation to the world around him. What are the dominant features of modern societies? In what respect do they resemble, and in what respect do they differ from the capitalist societies of the 19th century? How have they altered over the last few decades, not only in their economic structure, but in the content of their ideologies and in the function of their institutions? What are the attitudes within them of both rulers and ruled, and what has molded these attitudes? In what respect do these societies differ from the mental image most revolutionaries still have of them? What ensures their appropriate cohesion? And what are the sources of their crises? Does their development finally still create the condition of a socialist revolution? Does their development finally still create the conditions of a socialist revolution? Many of the ideas discussed will be new to those nurtured ideologically in the traditional left, whether, quote, Marxist, end quote, or, quote, anarchist, end quote. The main text has therefore been prefaced with a short synopsis of the argument as a whole, which is then amplified in the following chapters. The first few chapters define the areas to be discussed, starting from the phenomenon of political apathy, bemoaned and misunderstood by professional politicians, trade union officials, interest trots, and anti-bomb movement alike. Cardan seeks to document the profound changes in economic framework and prevailing ideology brought about by the last 100 years of continuous working-class struggle. The analysis is extrapolated as the author seeks to outline the economic and political relationships which would pertain in a society of total bureaucratic capitalism. But these early chapters go even further. They seek to clear the ideological deck, to break decisively with a method of thinking that has wrought havoc in the ranks of the, quote, left, end quote. Taking Marx's profoundly true statement that, quote, the dominant ideas of each epoch are the ideas of that epoch's ruling class, end quote, Cardan seeks to apply this concept to Marxism itself. Marxism was not born and did not develop in a political vacuum, but in the capitalist society of the 19th century. Cardan attempts to discover what it was in traditional revolutionary theory which led and still leads successive generations of revolutionaries to make such absurdly false prognoses, and to equate the essence of capitalism with the features of a society that capitalism had not yet sufficiently permeated and controlled. He tries to unearth the, quote, un-Marxist, end quote, in Marx, the bourgeois kernel that has corrupted the revolutionary fruit. And whether one agrees or not with this analysis, one must concede that it is at least a serious attempt, the only serious attempt we know of, to grapple with this major theoretical problem, which most contemporary, quote, Marxists, end quote, are either blissfully unaware of or prefer to ignore. The next few chapters define, describe, and analyze the bureaucratic phenomenon. They show how, starting in the process of production, bureaucratization, the organization and control of activity from the outside, gradually invades all aspects of social life, destroying the meaning of work, creating mass irresponsibility, corroding the content of politics, disrupting the channels of communication, not only between rulers and ruled, but within the ranks of both rulers and professional revolutionaries, corrupting all traditional values, including the revolutionary values, and rendering the rational management of modern industrial societies by bureaucratic, quote, elites, end quote, increasingly difficult. The book then examines the crises of bureaucratic society and discusses why the bureaucratic project is likely to fail. The bureaucratization of society is seen as preparing the ground for libertarian resurgence, deeper in socialist content and closer to fundamental human aspirations than any previous revolution in history. And because action is what distinguishes the conscious revolutionary from the philosopher or sociologist, the text concludes by defining some principles which should form the basis of meaningful revolutionary activity today. These are the ideas which have guided solidarity since its inception and which are now recognized as prevalent by increasingly numerous people, recognized as relevant by increasingly numerous people, often starting from very different premises. There is finally an appendix for those whose blind, but usually uninformed loyalty to Marxist economics prevents them from seeing the world as it is. We urge these comrades to read this appendix carefully, for it not only takes the economic analysis of state capitalism further than Marx did or could, but it does so using Marx's own categories. Having completed this task, it then puts the whole problem where it belongs, well in the background. We have deliberately placed these comments at the very end of the book. Socialism is not fundamentally about production or about productivity. Socialism is not even fundamentally about consumption. Socialism is about freedom. Socialism is about the relations between people both in production and out of production. Socialism is about the relation between man and his work and between man and the social institutions man creates. Control of the economy is but a means to these ends. In a sense, this book is ahead of its time. It describes phenomena which are not yet universal, which in many places only manifest themselves as tendencies which do not yet apply in many areas of the world, but which in the absence of socialist revolutions will almost certainly become the dominant pattern in years to come. At first, these ideas may only be accepted by a small minority, but we are confident they will make their way. Spinoza's motto, quote, "neither to laugh nor to weep, but to understand," end quote, epitomizes the purpose of the work as a whole. Some will doubtless weep at the systematic demolition of their cherished beliefs. Others will snigger at this attempt to challenge revolutionary Holy Writ and to rethink socialist ideology from rock bottom. We are confident, however, that the main message will be understood by those who have seen the inadequacy of traditional politics or those who have never been embroiled in them. There will, of course, always be those who, blinkered by their respective orthodoxies, incapable of an original thought of their own, will never understand. They will remain the repositories of revolutionary rust. We expect this book will be denounced as revisionist. We expect this book will be denounced as revisionist. Jesus Christ. In a world where everything is changing, where every field of knowledge and of technology is being revolutionized more completely than at any other period of human history, it is necessary to run if we are merely to keep pace. Only the, quote, revolutionaries, end quote, mark time. A constant ideological renewal is needed in order to even understand the world around us, let alone to grapple with the world around us or change the world around us. In this respect, Cardan's text is unashamedly revisionist. It is revisionist in the sense that Galileo was revisionist when he asserted against the tenets of the Church and of the Aristotelian doctrine that the earth revolved around the sun and not vice versa. The text and the text publishers will be labeled, quote, anarcho-Marxist, end quote, by those who like ready-made tabs for their ideological wares. The cap fits insofar as we stand in a double line of fire, denounced as anarchist by the Marxist and as Marxist by the anarchist. It is true insofar as we appeal to the libertarian ideals of some Marxists and to the need clearly felt by some anarchists for a self-consistent and modern ideology going further than the slogan of, quote, politics out, end quote. Basically, however, we are ourselves and nothing more. We live here and now, not in Petrograd in 1917 or in Barcelona in 1936. We have no gods, not even revolutionary gods. Paraphrasing Marx, quote, philosophers have only interpreted the world. What is necessary is to change it, end quote. We might say that revolutionaries have only interpreted Marx or Bakunin. What is necessary is to change them, end quote. We are the product of the degeneration of traditional politics and of the revolt of youth against established society. In an advanced industrial country in the second half of the 20th century, the aim of this book is to give both purpose and meaning to this revolt and to merge it with the constant working class struggle for its own emancipation. Solidarity Book, April 1963.